this is going to be part 5 of our lecture series on activity based costing, which is one of the very important and what students call it as one of the complex topics of management accounting, but I firmly believe that you will not find it difficult after listening to our lectures, after going through our lectures on activity based costing. So in the series of questions what we have been discussing, I am going to take up another couple of questions just to make you understand how to deal with the practical or numerical problem of activity based costing. So in the previous lectures of mine, we not only try to deal with the basic questions, but also some of the advanced questions were taken. So in that series, I am going to take another question which may help you in understanding this topic of activity based costing. So let us start with another question. This is going to be question number 5 of our discussion on activity based costing. So there is a company which is manufacturing 3 products, and they are furnishing some data to you for this particular year, and they are offering you some activities, some cost drivers, capacity and cost. The question is reporting that the activity with which they are dealing is power and quality inspections. Cost drivers are kilowatt hours for power, and for quality inspections, number of inspections. Capacity they have reported for power is 50,000 kilowatt hours, and cost for that is rupees 2 lakh. And the same for quality inspection is 10,000 inspections, that is their capacity, and cost for that is rupees 3 lakh. So this question is slightly different from the previously discussed questions, where we were provided with the cost of material, labor and overheads, we were provided with the machine hour, and we were asked to allocate those overheads to different types of product. Here the question is offering us activity, cost driver, capacity and cost. And further they are reporting that they are manufacturing 3 products, namely M, S and T, which is called as MST. And for the year ending 31st March 2022, they are having some assumptions of cost drivers, and they are reporting it like this, that for all 3 products, the kilowatt hours for M is 10,000, for S is 20,000 and for T is 15,000. So if you make a total of it, it comes to be 45,000 hours. And for quality inspections, for product M it is 3,500, for S it is 2,500 and for T it is 3,000 inspections. So if I make a total of it, it comes to be 3 plus 3 is 6, 2, 8 and 9,000 inspections. Now what is expected from us? They are basically asking us to compute the cost allocated to each product from each activity. That from each activity how much you are allocating, how much cost is being allocated to each of the product. That is what they are asking, and they are asking us to calculate the cost of unused capacity of each activity. So they expect from us that we should tell not only the unused capacity but also the cost of unused capacity for each of the activity in relation to all 3 products. And eventually they are asking us to discuss the factors which management considers while selecting a capacity level to compute the budgeted fixed overhead cost rate. Now here this point 3 makes this question a complete question of management accounting. We are not only asking you to compute but also to give your valuable comment, your observations, your inferences which you draw out of this calculation, and that is more important for us to understand here, that what are those factors the management is supposed to consider while choosing a capacity level for computing the budgeted fixed overhead cost. Now before starting this question, let us start with the working notes. We have to first calculate the rate per unit of cost driver. So as we have already observed from the question that we have 2 cost drivers, one is power and another is quality inspection. So if we look at the question, the total cost was reported to be rupees 2 lakh for power, and total kilowatt hours in terms of capacity was given to be 50,000 kilowatts. So if you ask me what is the rate per kilowatt hour, it is very simple. Total cost divided by the capacity, that is total kilowatt hour, and that is given to be 50,000 kilowatt hours. So 2 lakh divided by 50,000 kilowatt hours is going to provide me the rate of rupees 4 per kilowatt hour. So it is very simple to calculate. because on this rate only we can allocate, we can do the further allocations. And for quality inspection, the same process, take the total cost of quality inspection, that is rupees 3 lakh, and divide it by number of total inspections, whatever your capacity is, that is 10,000 inspections, and the rate comes to be rupees 30 per inspection. So if you are having one inspection, your cost will be rupees 30, and if you are consuming 1 kilowatt hour of power, your cost will be rupees 4. It is as simple as this. Now we have to prepare a statement of cost allocation to each of the product for each of the activity. So you have 3 products, and you have basically you have 2 activity, that is power and quality inspection. So across 3 products we have to allocate these 2 costs. One is power and another is quality inspection. So for all 3 products M, S and T, we are going to show the calculation, we are going to show the value. For power, if you look at the table, what we have done here is 10,000 kilowatt hour is your consumption, and 4 rupees is the rate which we have recently computed. So the cost of power comes to be rupees 40,000 for product M. For product S, the total kilowatt hour was 20,000 kilowatt hour. It was reported in the question, and the rate we have computed rupees 4. So amount comes to be rupees 80,000, and the same comes for product T is rupees 60,000. Likewise, for quality inspections, what we have done, we have taken number of inspection, multiplied it by rate, and for each 3 products we are reporting here the quality inspection cost. For product M, it is rupees 1,05,000, for product S it is rupees 75,000, and for product T it is rupees 90,000. So if we aggregate, we find the total cost of overhead for each of the product, which is 1,45,000 for M, 1,55,000 for S, and for T it is 1,50,000. And if you wish to know that what is the total cost of power, it comes to be rupees 1,80,000, and what is the total cost of quality inspection, it comes to be rupees 2,70,000. So activity driver wise cost is also reported here, and product wise activity cost is also calculated here. It is very simple, since power is supposed to be allocated on the basis of kilowatt hour of consumption, we have done it like that, and quality inspection is supposed to be allocated on the basis of number of inspections, and whatever rate we have computed, we have simply multiplied the quality of the number of inspections we have undergone for each of the product, and we have multiplied it by the rate to arrive at this total cost, right? So in this entire process, my dear learners, what we have tried to do, we have tried to first of all identify the cost drivers, which is already reported in the question. We have taken the actual kilowatt hours of consumption for each of the product, and we have multiplied it by rate to arrive at the total amount of power. And for quality inspections, we have followed the same process. We have taken the number of inspections product wise, multiplied it by rate, because rate we have recently computed with the help of total cost divided by total number of inspections or total number of kilowatt hours. Now we can calculate the cost of unused capacity for each activity, which was demanded in the question. So if you look at it, there are 2 ways to calculate the cost of unused capacity. But before that, we should know what is my unused capacity. A very closer look of question. If we look at the question, we find the total consumption of power, the total cost was rupees 2 lakh, and it is the total cost comes to be 1,80,000, whereas with the capacity it was rupees 2 lakh. So difference is rupees 20,000, which is unused, or you can also call it as reserve capacity, that this we have not yet utilized. Alternatively, the same can be computed with the help of kilowatt hours. We have total kilowatt hours of 50,000. Actual consumption was 45,000 kilowatt hours. So what is unused or reserve? 5,000 kilowatt hours. And rate we know rupees 4 per kilowatt hours. So 5,000 unused kilowatt hour is going to be multiplied with the cost of power, which is rupees 4, and it is giving me the same value, that is rupees 20,000. So my dear learners, there are 2 ways to calculate the cost of unused capacity for power. One is either you take the total amount on the basis of your total capacity and actual usage, and the difference of these two is going to tell us about the unused capacity, which is reported here, and the same can be computed for quality inspection. 3 lakh rupees was total cost on the basis of total capacity, and 2,70,000 is actual cost. So difference is 30,000. This is going to be my unused capacity for quality inspection. Alternatively, we can do this calculation with the help of unused quality inspection. So whatever unused quality inspection we had, that is 1,000, because capacity was of 10,000, we have conducted 9,000 inspections. So there is a kind of unused capacity in terms of quality inspection is 1,000 inspections, and rate for that was rupees 30. So 1,000 into 30 is going to give me the amount of unused capacity in terms of quality inspection, which is rupees 30,000. So this is the point where this question is entirely different from the previously discussed question. We didn't ask you to calculate the unused capacity for each activity, but here we are asking you to do this calculation. But remember, you can find a numerical problem where you have more number of cost drivers. In here we are dealing with only 2 cost drivers. You can have 5 drivers, and for all 5 drivers, examiner may ask you to calculate unused capacity. So need not to worry about that. It is very simple. Either you take the total cost, compare it with the actual cost, and the difference will be your unused capacity if your actual consumption is less than that of your standard capacity, or what you call as total capacity. So either question is asking us to calculate unused capacity, or they are asking us to calculate the excess capacity. They stand for the same meaning. So you can do it either by the total amount or by the number of kilowatt hours, that this is my capacity, this is my actual consumption. Difference we find, and we have to simply multiply it with the rate of that concerned cost driver. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Now the question talks about the qualitative aspect. What are those factors which we are supposed to consider while selecting or choosing a capacity level for computing budgeted fixed overhead cost rate? So how to compute, what are those factors which I have to keep in mind as a management accountant when I am calculating or computing the budgeted fixed overhead cost rate? Because fixed overhead is of course this is the amount which is fixed in nature, it is fixed in total. So we have to find the fixed cost rate. So what are those factors? So I shall be telling you, although the list is very exhaustive, there are number of factors, but I am discussing here some of the important one. First one is effect on the product costing and capacity management. While computing the product fixed overhead cost rate, we have to examine the impact of it on product costing and of course the capacity management. Suppose my plant is having a capacity of say 10,000 units, and I am manufacturing, I am using more than 50% of it, or say 60% of it, which means I am manufacturing 6,000 units. So I have to understand that there is still 4,000 of unused capacity, and it is going to play a very important role while computing the budgeted fixed overhead cost rate. So what is the extent of capacity utilization? Can I increase, can I enhance my capacity utilization? Can I ensure that there is no unused capacity, or even if it is there, it is very nominal? This is one of the important factor which a management accountant keeps in mind while computing the budgeted fixed overhead cost rate. The second point is, what shall be the impact of my decision on pricing decision? So the kind of market in which I am entering, that also plays a very important role. Suppose I am entering in a market where there is no scope for increasing price, then of course I will have to manage with this fixed overhead cost rate. I cannot afford to increase my price, my cost, because suppose if I increase my total cost, or if I try to report that my total cost per unit is on the higher side, it is going to have some impact on pricing. So can we afford that? Now you must be thinking, so are we going to report the lesser amount of cost? No, of course not. We are not supposed to offer a wrong reporting or provide a wrong reporting, but we can think of enhancing our capacity utilization, that we should not have any idle capacity or unused capacity. So we should try to have the optimum utilization of our plant capacity. That is what we can do by incorporating the export order, the special order, or something like that. At times there are certain regulatory requirements also, which actually act as a kind of boundary for us as a cost accountant, that there is a regulatory requirement which you have to fulfill while calculating the cost fixed overhead cost rate. So that also is a factor which is going to affect what is the possible impact of this calculation on my financial statement. Of course, it is something which is understood, but if you have to offer a point, you can also write this as a point, that the effect of this decision on financial statement is something which is always at the very top priority of the management accountant while taking a decision. Since the question is asking what are those factors which are to be considered, we are offering you, I am trying to tell you the important factors which we have to keep in mind as a management accountant. So in this way, my dear learners, we have completed this question wherein we were not asked to calculate the cost per unit as per traditional method and then as per ABC and offer the reasons for differences. Like the traditional, or you can say the set pattern of the questions which we come across when we look at the previous question papers or the examination questions. Here the question is slightly different. So sometimes we are accustomed to a stereotyped of questions where we expect that in this examination the same type of question may come, which may or may not happen. So I am just trying to prepare you for that kind of situation wherein the examiner is simply asking you how to allocate this cost and what are those factors which you have to consider while taking a decision of budgeted fixed overhead rate. So with this this question comes to an end. Now we shall be taking up another question, which is going to be the last question on activity based costing. This is question number 6 in our series of numerical problems. Here we have two products reported in the question, product A and B. They are reporting us about the unit produced, direct labor hour per unit, machine hour per unit, setup of machine, orders, and then machine activity expenses is reported to be rupees 3 lakh, setup related expenses rupees 30,000, and expenses which are related to the orders, it is rupees 35,000. So question has reported us the units 1000, 2000 for A and B, direct labor hour per unit 2 and 3 for A and B, machine hour per unit 6 and 1.5, setup of machine is also reported, and orders are reported to be 18 and 70. Now let us see what is expected from us in this question. They are asking us to calculate the overhead per unit absorbed using activity based costing approach. Now with this language, students very often they get confused that overheads per unit absorbed. Always remember that overhead is either traced to, or it is absorbed to, or it is allocated to. If these terms are being used in the question, they stand for the similar meaning. So need not to get distracted with these terms, these terminologies which are coming in the examination question. They are asking you for the same, that how to allocate this overhead to each of the product on the basis of ABC, that is activity based costing approach. So overhead is supposed to be absorbed. There is an absorption of overheads for each of the product. So it can be allocation, it can be distribution, it can be absorption. They stand for the same meaning. So let us solve this question. Question is very simple in nature. It is asking us to allocate, because I thought of starting with the simple one and ending with the simplest one. So keeping that in mind, we are going to have a solution to this question. So very simple, for both the products we have to first calculate the rate, and what we are doing here, machine hour rate we have to calculate. What is the formula for that? If you recall the very first lecture of mine, I told you whatever is the concerned activity expenses, concerned cost driver expenses, take that expense and divide it by the concerned driver. So for machine activity expenses, of course the machine hour is going to be the cost driver. So machine hour rate we have to calculate. Machine activity expenses reported in the question is rupees 3 lakh. It is supposed to be divided by machine hours for A, 9,000, and this is going to give me the rate, so 3 lakh divided by 9,000, right? For this product B, and a rate of per machine setup, if I calculate, so this rate comes to be rupees 33.33, and a rate per machine setup, if we calculate setup related expenses divided by number of setups. So remember, it is a combined cost of A and B. That is why we are showing the calculation for product A in the column of product A, and amount in the column of product B, because it is a combined cost. So if you look at the formula for 1000 units, what we are doing, we are taking the hours, total machine hours of A and B both. Setup is also taken for both A and B, and per order rate is also, number of orders is also taken for both the products, that is A and B. So rate per order, total expenses of orders divided by number of orders, and here we find the rate, that is 397.73 for rate per order. Rate per machine setup is rupees 461.538, and for machine hour rate it is rupees 33.33. So this is a combined per unit cost, you can say, or combined per unit rate. It would be wrong to say per unit, because it is different for all three drivers. For machine hour it is machine hour rate. For rate per machine setup, there is a setup which is going to be a determining factor, and for orders it is number of order which is going to be a determining factor. Now since we have got the rate, we can very easily calculate this, prepare the statement of cost as per ABC method for both the product. So machine related cost, we have to simply take up the total hours, total machine hours used for product A. Units are given and unit per machine hour is given. Consumption machine hour for every unit is given. So we have to calculate the machine hour for product A, multiplied with the rate which we have recently computed, and the amount comes to be rupees 2 lakh for product A, and for B it comes to be rupees 1 lakh. When we look at the setup related cost, of course the same process, number of setups of product A multiplied by this the per unit cost which we have computed, and it is giving me a value of rupees 6,923, and for product B it is rupees 23,076. Order related cost, if we look at, 18 orders were there for product A and 70 orders were given for product B. So what we have done, we have taken both the orders, we have taken the first order, that is for product A, multiplied by the rate. See, the rate is same for both the product, because we have found the combined rate, and we have simply multiplied it with the number of orders. So when I multiply it with the 18 orders for product A, the cost comes to be rupees 7,159. For B it comes to be rupees 27,841. And when I calculate the total cost, very simple, take machine related cost, setup related cost and order related cost. When we aggregate these three, we find the total cost of product A, that is rupees 2,14,082. And if you ask me to calculate the per unit cost, very simple, divided by total number of units, that is 1000 units, and it is giving me a value of 214.082. The same process we follow for product B, machine related cost, setup related cost and order related cost. When we aggregate these three values, that is 1 lakh rupees 23,076 and 27,841, it is giving me a total value of 1,50,917, and cost per unit comes to be 75.458. So with this, my dear learners, we have understood how to calculate cost as per ABC method. So we have now let us recapitulate what we have discussed in this very chapter. So if you recall the first very lecture of mine, when I was telling you about the activity based costing, I said that the basis for our entire discussion shall be the activity with which you are dealing. So in all numerical problems which we have dealt up till now, what we have done, we have identified the activities, and in most of the questions the activities were either the machine related cost, either the setups were there, number of orders were there. So we have to identify the cost driver from the specific question with which we are dealing, and then those cost drivers, their per unit cost is calculated and it is attributed to each of the product. What is the point of concern or point of understanding for us? At times my students or learners are reporting, sir, the production overhead is supposed to be the same, but here when we are allocating, when we are doing the calculation, how come is this possible that we are finding the different values? See, why are we finding the different values? The point is very much clear, the point is very much obvious, is the reason. Because the total overhead is supposed to be allocated to each of the products on the basis of machine hours when we are dealing with the questions as per conventional method, or what you call as traditional method of computing the cost per unit or allocating the overheads. So machine hour or labor hour used to be the criteria under traditional method, whereas between the overhead and the product, what comes, the point of activity comes in between, and we have to relate each and every cost of overhead to the activity, and then activity wise allocation is supposed to be made to the product. So this is the point, this is why the allocation is going to make your cost different. So if I take two products, that is, suppose say for instance A and B, it can be on the higher side in case of product A, and it can be on the lower side in case of product B, and the reason is very obvious. It is simply because of the number of the setups you are using, the number of orders you are involving, the number of machine hours you are consuming. So it is very logical apportionment, whereas in case of traditional method it was not that logical. It was only machine hour which was taken as a base to allocate or apportion those overheads, whereas in ABC we are being more logical. So we can say that it is a logical way of allocating or apportioning this overhead. I hope you must have not only understood the topic of activity based costing, but also enjoyed the way we have dealt with the questions. So with this, I am ending to this topic of activity based costing. See you soon with another topic of management accounting. Thank you so much.